Section 1. The Surprise Drive. It was an ordinary afternoon, but in my mind, I had already decided that today wouldn't be just another day. My stepbrother and I had been spending more time together lately, mostly in casual, everyday ways, sharing meals, watching shows, and running small errands. But there was something about the way he always looked at cars, the way his eyes lingered on the steering wheel as though it were a dream just out of reach, that made me want to do something for him. You see, he had never driven before. Not once. Despite his fascination with cars, no one had ever trusted him enough to hand him the keys. Maybe it was because he was young, or maybe it was because everyone assumed he wasn't ready. But I knew he was. And more than that, I wanted to be the one to give him that chance. So when we walked out to the car that day, I casually dangled the keys in front of him. At first, he didn't understand what I meant. He laughed nervously, assuming I was teasing him, but when I smiled and placed the keys firmly in his hand, his expression changed completely. His face froze for a moment, like he couldn't quite believe it. Then his eyes widened with a mix of fear and pure joy, and that sparkle I saw in him will stay with me forever. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Dead serious," I replied, trying to sound calm, though I was just as nervous. "Today you're driving." His hands shook as he opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. I could see the conflict in him, the fear of making a mistake battling against the thrill of finally holding the wheel. I walked around to the passenger side and buckled myself in, silently preparing to guide him through this big moment. The engine roared to life, and he gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. I gave him a few gentle instructions. How to adjust the mirrors, how to place his foot on the pedal. He followed every word like it was gospel. At first, the car jerked forward in uneven starts, but after a few minutes, something shifted. His breathing slowed, his grip loosened, and suddenly he wasn't just nervous anymore. He was smiling. A wide, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. I couldn't help but watch him in that moment. The boy who was always quiet, always reserved, was now filled with life and excitement, and I felt proud that I could be the one to give him this first taste of freedom. As the car rolled smoothly down the empty road, he laughed, a sound that carried both disbelief and happiness. "I can't believe I'm actually doing this," he said. And in that moment it struck me. This wasn't just about teaching him to drive. This was about trust, about sharing something personal, about crossing into a new kind of closeness. I didn't know it then, but that simple choice, to hand him the keys, was the beginning of something much bigger than either of us expected. Section 2. The Growing Bond. After that first drive, something between us shifted. It was subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but it was there. That day didn't just end when we parked the car. It lingered in the way he looked at me afterward, the way his voice carried a kind of gratitude that went beyond words. He kept saying thank you, but it wasn't the polite kind of thank you. It was deeper, almost as if I had given him a gift he never thought he'd receive. From then on, driving became our secret ritual. Every few days, when the roads were quiet and no one was watching, I would slip him the keys and let him take the wheel again. Each time he grew more confident, more relaxed, and more alive. And every time I found myself watching him, noticing how the joy on his face made me feel something I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't just about the driving, though. Somewhere along the way, our conversations began to change. He started opening up to me in ways he never had before. He told me about his insecurities, about feeling like he never truly belonged anywhere. Being a stepchild, he carried this unspoken weight. Never fully part of one world, never fully part of another. I listened, really listened, and in those moments it felt like I was seeing a side of him that no one else had ever seen. Late nights became our thing too. After drives, we would sit in the car long after the engine was off, just talking. Sometimes it was silly stuff. Music, movies, random jokes that made us laugh until our sides hurt. Other times it was deeper. He told me about his fears for the future, about dreams he thought were too impossible to say out loud. And without even realizing it, I started sharing more of myself too. Things I had never said to anyone, I found myself telling him. The bond we shared was starting to feel different. I noticed the little things. How he always looked for me first when he walked into a room. How his voice softened when he spoke to me. How his eyes lingered just a second too long when I smiled. And in return, I felt myself drawn closer to him. It wasn't something we talked about, not yet. It lived quietly in the space between us, in the laughter, in the silences, in the moments when our hands brushed while switching gears and neither of us pulled away. Sometimes I would catch myself wondering why my heart skipped in those moments. Why did it feel so warm when he leaned just a little too close to show me something on his phone? Why did I replay his laugh in my head long after we said goodnight? I tried to brush it off as nothing, as simple sibling closeness, but deep down I knew it was becoming something more. Something unspoken, fragile, and dangerously real. And though we hadn't crossed any line yet, part of me sensed it was only a matter of time. Section 3. Crossing the line. It happened one evening after another of our secret drives. The sun had already set, and the road home was quiet, lit only by the faint glow of the dashboard. He parked the car smoothly, a sign of how far he had come since that nervous first day. I turned to congratulate him, ready to tease him about finally driving like a pro, but the look on his face stopped me. He wasn't smiling this time. Instead, his eyes held something raw, something unspoken. For a moment, neither of us said anything, the silence filling the car with a strange intensity. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "I don't think you realize what you mean to me." The words caught me off guard. My heart raced, but I couldn't look away. His voice was shaky, vulnerable, but there was no mistaking the weight behind what he said. I laughed nervously, trying to ease the moment. "You mean like a good teacher?" He shook his head slowly. "No, more than that." Something inside me froze. I wanted to deny what I felt, to dismiss it as nothing, but the truth was already there, lingering between us. Every late-night talk, every brush of the hand, every shared secret, it had all been leading to this. Before I could respond, his hand reached for mine. Not in the casual, playful way it sometimes happened while switching gears, but deliberately, firmly. His touch was warm, trembling slightly, and I didn't pull away. Couldn't. In that moment, it felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of us. My breath caught as he leaned closer, the space between us shrinking. I knew it was wrong. I knew we shouldn't. But when his forehead touched mine, all my reasons melted into silence. "I think about you all the time," he whispered, almost as though he was confessing a sin. I should have stopped him. I should have pushed away. But instead, I closed my eyes and let the moment consume me. Our first kiss wasn't rushed or careless. It was hesitant, full of fear and longing, as though we both knew it could change everything. And it did. When we finally pulled away, the air inside the car felt heavy. Neither of us spoke right away. My chest ached with guilt, but also with an undeniable sense of relief. Relief that I wasn't the only one who felt it. "We can't," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I know," he replied. His eyes filled with the same conflict that was tearing me apart. "But I can't pretend anymore." That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything in my head. The way he looked at me, the way his hand fit so naturally in mine, the way my heart betrayed me by wanting more. I knew we had crossed a line that could never be undone. And yet, part of me already knew it was only the beginning. Section 4. The cost of love. The days that followed were heavy with silence and stolen glances. On the surface, nothing had changed. We still went for our drives, still laughed, still shared secrets, but underneath everything was different. That kiss had rewritten the unspoken rules between us, and now every moment felt charged with a tension we could no longer ignore. I tried to bury the guilt by reminding myself of the truth. He was my stepbrother, and I was already in a relationship. I told myself that what happened in that car was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. But deep down I knew better. It wasn't a mistake. It was a reflection of something real, something I couldn't deny, no matter how much I wanted to. It didn't take long before others began to notice the change. My partner, who had once been the center of my world, Started asking why I seemed distant, why I smiled more when I was around my stepbrother than when I was with him. I brushed it off with excuses, stress, tiredness, too much on my mind, but inside I knew the truth. My heart was drifting away. One evening my partner confronted me directly. "You're not here anymore," he said, his voice firm but breaking at the edges. "Who is it?" The question hit me like a storm. I wanted to deny it, to protect the fragile secret I had been carrying, but my silence gave me away. He knew. He didn't need a name. The pain in his eyes was enough to tell me that he had already guessed. That night, I sat alone in my room, torn apart by the weight of what I had done. Loving someone I shouldn't had cost me the trust of someone who had once loved me unconditionally. And yet, even with the guilt gnawing at me, I couldn't erase the way my stepbrother made me feel. The next day he found me sitting outside, staring blankly at nothing. He sat beside me quietly, then spoke in a low voice. "I don't regret it," he said. "Not a single moment. Do you?" Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to say yes, to declare it all a terrible mistake. But the words wouldn't come. Instead I whispered, "I don't know." He took my hand gently, his touch as steady as his voice. "I love you. Not as a sister. Not as family. I love you as someone I can't stop thinking about. And I don't care if it's wrong." My chest ached at his words. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everything we stood to lose. Family, trust, the fragile balance of our lives. To love him meant breaking everything else. To deny him meant breaking myself. As I looked at him, I realized that love doesn't always come in neat, acceptable forms. Sometimes it arrives messy, forbidden, and impossible to explain. That day I gave him the keys to the car, I didn't just give him control of the wheel. I gave him a piece of myself I could never take back. And though the world would never understand, I knew in my heart that moment had changed us forever.